brother making these ends. I'm that brother who you. I'm that brother who you. Trying to kill my crew. Trying to kill my team.
Before I get started, there's two things that I gotta say. One is I am not anti-Westbrook. People make it out that if you're pro-Harden, then you're anti-Westbrook. If you're pro-Westbrook, then you're anti-Harden. That's not the case. If there's one person to win the MVP that's not James Harden, then my choice would be Russell Westbrook. Number two, I specifically did this after a James Harden bad game. Now, I try not to bring up points in the playoff series. There might have been a couple in there, but I don't want to do this off drastic measures. Now, I could have easily done this after game 2 with that Russell Westbrook fourth quarter, but I didn't. So I tried to keep as many points, or I'm trying to keep as many points down as possible with this playoff series and keep it as a regular season award. With that being said, here are my 5 reasons why James Harden is the MVP. Number 1 is Mike D'Antoni. Okay, for some odd reason, people think that this dude is an absolute basketball genius all of a sudden because of James Harden's success, okay? And it's not. Mike D'Antoni has only been in the playoffs once since the 07-08 Phoenix Suns, and that one team got swept in the first round, okay? That is 07-08. Think about that. I was 11, okay? I grew out this full, luxurious beard to show you the time span that it's taken for Mike D'Antoni to be a serious contender for a championship, okay? I was 11. I was a little boy, and now I am almost a grown-ass man, and this dude has only been in the playoffs once, okay? So do not confuse that with James Harden's success. Another thing is that 07-08 team had Steve Nash, a prime Steve Nash, a prime Amari Stoudemire, a prime Shawn Marion. These are all 3 soon-to-be Hall of Famers, if not already Hall of Famers. So don't get it twisted. That had a Grant Hill, who was a great bench player. That had a Leandro Barbosa, who was sixth man of the year. These guys are all in their primes. This is one of the best rosters assembled of all time. And guess what their record was? It was 55-27. Okay, what is James Harden's record right now? It's like 54-28, or it might be even 55-27. So this roster that was assembled, that is one of the best of all times, had the same record that James Harden is having, that was predicted to be one of the worst teams in the NBA. Come on, okay? And then Steve Nash, people always say Mike D'Antoni's system boosts their numbers. Steve Nash averaged 19, 11, and 3 when he got the MVP. 19, 11, and 3. James Harden is putting up 29, 11, and 8. Okay, so don't confuse success of other people with, don't confuse that with being an excuse for James Harden doing good. And another reason that is just, it's beyond me, is people bring up Jeremy Lin's success in New York. Okay, this dude had one of the best stretches in the NBA of all time, okay? And the reason why was because he was hitting game winners from like 35 feet out. Okay, he was doing some crazy things. It's not like he was taking, like, it's not like he was, his rebounds or assists were just going rocket through the roof. It's just this dude was doing stuff that we, you know, that lucky people do. It's just sometimes people go on little streaks. What it reminds me of is when Tim Tebow started for the Broncos and he took them over the Steelers in overtime and had that very, very good 6-week stretch. Okay, do not confuse Jeremy Lin's 2 to 3 months of extreme success with James Harden consistent years upon years of getting stuff done in this league. Number 2 is consistency. Now, this is something that's more important to me, I guess you so to say, but James Harden has been consistent for the past 5 years, okay? And for some reason, people think this man just woke up and is just now doing stuff spectacular this year. For instance, 2 years ago, he should have won the MVP, and I'm sure you've already heard this, but Steph Curry won it because his team was a number 1 seed who actually could compete for the championship. That's funny because that's the same thing that is happening right now with Russell Westbrook. I mean, this dude has been averaging over 25 points since he left OKC. And here are his numbers right here for the past 3 years, that being the year that I said with Steph Curry winning it, even though he only averaged like 22 or 23 points, which I think that he did deserve it, but I think James Harden deserved a little bit more. But look at the numbers right here. He's been averaging almost 28 points for the past 3 years. The thing that I want you guys to see right now is the fact that he's only averaging 3 more assists this year than he has in the past 2. The reason why I say that is because of the whole Mike D'Antoni thing. This also crosses over with that, is people say that his numbers are flaring up because of him, which in general, they're not. Only 3 more assists per game. Why would that happen? Think about it. Maybe because he switched from shooting guard to point guard, and that's what they do. He is ball dominant more. He looks for his teammates more. He drives to the basket more. He brings up the ball, so honestly, you can bring up the ball, pass it to one guy who's just wide open. That's 1 more assist for the game. How many times do you think that happens in basketball? Probably a lot, and that's the entire reason why he's getting so much more numbers. And then another thing I put up on here is Russell Westbrook's numbers the past 3 years. These are consistent as well. So I'm not trying to say that, Russell Westbrook isn't consistent, but look at the field goal attempts. This is the reason why I put this, because I thought this was pretty cool. So they average about the same amount of points. Russell Westbrook averaging 1 more, while he took 4 more shots in that 3 years ago. And then this one, James Harden averaged about 5 more points, but he only took 2 more shots. And this year, right now, James Harden is only averaging 2 less points than Russell Westbrook is, but Russell is taking 5 more shots. Now, personally, I think statistically, I would take these 3 years over Russell Westbrook's. Number 3 is help. Now, I would much rather prefer James Harden's roster over Russell Westbrook's. Now, that's more so because of how the league is played this year, but if you look at it, it's not much different, and we'll get into that for a little bit. But even though Russell Westbrook doesn't have as much help, so to say, as James Harden, look at the past. That does not give you an excuse to give him the MVP. Now, literally, the Thunder could lose by 50 points, and somehow Skip Bayless would be like, well, now you see why he deserves the MVP. It doesn't work like that. Okay, look at these 3 guys that, me personally, I think that they had less help than Russell Westbrook did. KG in 04 had an aging Latrell Sprewell and an aging Sam Cassell. These guys, those were the only 2 players. And then LeBron James, 09, name me somebody off their roster. Please tell me, I'm listening. And then D Rose in 11. Now, I know he had Joakim Noah and Carlos Boozer. Carlos Boozer was aging. Joakim Noah has never, ever been that good. And at that point, he was young, and he wasn't in that, 3rd in the MVP voting prime, which he should have never been in the first place. Okay, but the funny thing about these 3 guys is that they were all number 1 seeds. All 3 of these guys were number 1 seeds with less help personally than I think than Russell Westbrook. Okay, these guys were actually legit contenders for a championship, whereas Russell Westbrook is not, and James Harden is. Now, some of the role players I think are being extremely over-exaggerated. For instance, Ryan Anderson, he's averaging a lot less points and a lot less rebounds than he did in the past year. Eric Gordon has only averaged 15 plus points in the past 3 years, I think it is. And for some reason, people are acting like this man is like a Jamal Crawford, which he's just not. Now, I do love Eric Gordon. I think he's very good. Lou Williams is the shit. I love Lou Williams. But, I mean, he came in the middle of the season, and James Harden was doing this way before he ever stepped on the court with them. And then Patrick Beverley, D-League player, went and played overseas. He's top 5, I'd say, on my jersey list, because I love me some Pat Beverley. But he's just not. You guys are confusing these guys' success with just them having success and not James Harden. For some reason, these guys are all stars on his team all of a sudden, and I don't get it. Another guy is Clint Capella. He's not a good center. Nene. Now, I know that Nene had a fantastic game, but look at the positions that he was set up in the entire game. You don't go 12 of 12 from the field by just getting lucky and making every shot. You get it from good shot selections, which James Harden was creating. And then some people say that Russ doesn't have anybody. I'm glad that you guys are finally seeing Alex Abrines, Doug McDermott, who else? Kyle Singler. These guys are all within that 40 35 to 40 percentile in three-point shooting. They have three-point shooters now. They might be a defensive liability, but so is almost everybody on the Rockets. And then who else do we got? We got Steven Adams and Enes Kanter. One fun fact, both of them are in the top 15 for offensive rebounds. That means more and more possessions for Russell Westbrook to boost his stats and whatnot, and to make a difference with the ball, which, like, I'm not criticizing for it. I'm just saying that it is more situations for him to do it. And guess who is in the top? Guess who's the top offensive boards player for the Rockets? Is Ryan Anderson, and he is barely cracking the top 50 at like 48. Okay, and then Victor Oladipo, you cannot honestly tell me that you would take Eric Gordon over Victor Oladipo in the free agency. Now, some of these guys on the Rockets just played out. Okay, they did, but that's not an excuse to say that this man has so much more help than the other man does. Okay, and it's not an excuse to credit the team success on all the role players around him and not the main guy who's actually getting this all done. Number 4 is team success. Now, this is something that is very important to me and my decision in MVP voting, okay? And for some reason, people think that OKC was supposed to be absolutely trash, one of the last lottery teams of the year because of Kevin Durant leaving. But in all honesty, they were just supposed to be an above-average team who gets knocked out in the first round, maybe even second round, and not be a contender, which is exactly how they've ended up, okay? But the Houston Rockets, personally, I had them at a number 10 seed in the Western Conference, just the Western Conference, okay? Because if you looked at the roster, you would think that this is just not possible for this to happen, okay? And look at the preseason rankings from every other major sports outlet. ESPN had OKC at 7 and the Houston Rockets at 14. Sports Illustrated had OKC at 9 and the Houston Rockets at 15. And then Numbers Fire had them at 8 and Houston Rockets at 17. Now, I looked all through the web and I could only find one source that had the Houston Rockets being a greater, seed than the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the first thing that they said was, this could definitely go wrong, but it might go right, okay? And that's the whole thing of the entire Houston Rockets season. It has gone right, and that is because of James Harden and the role players. But team success is such a wide margin, and people are not giving the credit where credit is due to these Houston Rockets, and most importantly, James Harden. Number 5 is stat stuffing, okay? And the reason why I put this is because that goddamn Russell Westbrook stat stuffs like crazy. But so does James Harden, okay? They both stat stuff. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because it is all, I have watched almost every single NBA game this season. I have watched almost every single Russell Westbrook game this season. I've watched every single James Harden game this season, okay? And you guys have got to stop it with all these statistics that they put up, okay? And here's one thing that I hear all the time is that Russell Westbrook went 33-10 with his triple doubles, okay? Correlation does not mean causation. And I know that might sound ridiculous to say, but there has been times where Russell Westbrook has a triple double and he has played absolutely awful and they win, okay? And there's been times where he does not have a triple double and he has played fantastic and they lose, okay? It's a game, and it does not show you what actually happens by just looking at the box score. For instance, okay, and I told you guys that I wasn't going to bring up anything from the series, but if you watch that fourth quarter from the second game, it is one of the worst fourth quarters of ever, if you really look at it. But that doesn't, this kind of happens a lot during the season with Russell Westbrook, and it's not to put shame on him, but it does. And he had a triple-double that game. But, it's obviously not as bad as that fourth quarter was. But there's some times where he just plays bad and he can get the triple-double. And look at James Harden's game. In Game 4, he played absolutely awful from all 3 quarters, but he played good by getting his teammates involved, and he did not have the stats to back it up. Okay, my MVP consists of 3 things. It is team success, number 1, statistically, number 2, and 3, entertainment. Now, Russell Westbrook definitely has the entertainment part, but if you put it statistically, and if you put team success, I think you have got to go with James Harden. Now, here's one thing that I gotta ask you about the stats: is if Russell Westbrook had 31, 10, and 9.555 or 99999, and you wouldn't give him the MVP, that makes absolutely no sense, and that is why I'm making this video, is because you cannot judge it off of that. And if you would give the MVP to him because he has 31, 10, and 10, that it doesn't make sense, okay? And that is the whole reason why I'm putting this, is because by eye test, me personally, I would give it to James Harden. That's just me though, okay? And here are my 5 reasons why I have James Harden as the MVP.